Okay, let's discuss the exam focus question on lesson number 9, personality part 1. So I have been given like 15 questions for you, my dear student. So please take into account like basically when we talk about this uh, area, please pay your attention to the given marks as well as the action verb. It's really important, my dear student. Like state whether you agree with this statement and justify your answer. So like since 3 marks have been provided, like there are five questions already given under question number 1. Please do remember, like since 3 marks have been given for one part, like first you have to state whether you agree or not. Then after you have to justify your answer. Okay, so that means for the whether you agree or disagree, 1 mark will be given, and the remaining 2 marks will be given for your justification. So Miss Michelle's policy is 1 mark for 1 point. So therefore, at least to justify your answer, at least provided 2 point is must requirement, my dear student. Because since already 15 marks have been allocated, has been given 3 marks for each question, 1 mark for your whether you agree or disagree, and 2 marks for the justification. So in order to earn 2 marks for the justification, you are required to mention at least 2 points. So let's discuss one by one. First one, education and family environment are the only critical factors affecting the personal development of a person. Education and family environment are the only critical factors affecting the personal development of a person. So actually, a few minutes ago, I have told you like there are so many factors, like around 14, 15 factors I have told you, which affect on a person's personality. So in the given question, it has stated like education and family environment is only matter for like only critical factors for personality development. So therefore, your answer should be disagree. Then you have to justify not only education. Yeah, this is the way you have to justify your answer. Not only education and family environment, but also like basically um, culture. Culture mean like the shared values and beliefs of the environment where they live, as well as the religious thoughts, the workplace environment, social status, characteristic of peer group, childhood memories, and then after sex differences, like intelligence and nervous system of the person, language of the person, school environment, social role, interpersonal relationships, psychological factors, all are really affected for personality development. Not only education and family environment, likewise, no need to list all the factors, but at least 5, 6 factors it's better to mention other than the education and family environment. So therefore, you have to tell that you cannot agree with this state. Second one is unconscious mind contain all the thoughts, memories, feeling, and wishes we are aware of at any given time. Like unconscious mind. Basically, unconscious mind contains all the thoughts, memories, feeling, and wishes we are aware of at any given time. Like basically, we know like you have to tell that unconscious mind is not actually, it is, you have to disagree with this statement. Basically, you have to tell that according to Sigmund Freud, human mind can be 3 types. Either it can be pre-conscious, conscious, and unconscious. Then after, no need to explain all these 3 parts again, but you have to tell what is included in the unconscious mind. On the other hand, in the unconscious mind, you have to tell that it's a reservoir of feeling, thoughts, urge, and memories outside our conscious awareness. The called this area contain unacceptable or unpleasant content such as feeling of pain, anxiety, and conflict. On the other hand, you can tell uh, like the thoughts, memories, feelings, and wishes we are aware of at any given time is coming under conscious mind, not unconscious mind. So that is the way you have to justify your answer. So therefore, part 1 and part 2, both you have to disagree. Then part 3, a person with good ego strength can effectively manage the pressure from the id and superego. Yes, you have to agree with that statement because you know when we talk about when we talk about ego, first tell what is ego. Okay, so when we talk about ego, so basically when we talk about ego is the it's a personality component responsible for dealing the reality. On the other hand, it says like basically ego help us to balance the different demands come from id and superego. Okay, so because we know that id has selfish needs and superego has moral principle and always try to work. That means that means for us, like um because when we talk about superego, it always try to deal with like idealistic standards. So act upon idealistic standards rather than realistic principle. So always ego is a very rational part, and since it focus on how things should be happen, so therefore automatically always ego always try to balance the different demands, like totally different demands coming from id and superego, because you know the demands come from id is totally different than the demands come from superego. Totally different. So therefore, these totally different demands are coming together, and these demands will be like carefully balanced by the ego of the person, because ego part of the personality, because ego is it deals with reality principle, but deals with like pleasure principle. Super ego deals with moral principle. So therefore this pleasure principle and moral principle is nicely balanced by the ego's reality principle. So therefore we can tell that when ego is very strong, it can effectively manage the pressure from id and super ego. Therefore you can agree with part 3. 4. Oral stage is critical for the development of ego of a person. Okay. So actually, oral stage is critical for the development of the ego of the person, because we know oral stage is basically what is important to develop. So when we discussing about this like oral stage, so what do you feel about this? What you have realized about this? Actually, what is your idea on this? Oral stage is critical for the development of ego of a person. Basically, oral stage is not critical for the development of the ego, but basically, we believe that uh, in order to develop a person's ego, uh, so we have discussed about that. I don't know whether you can remember, whether you can see this part, whether you can see. So when we referring the oral stage, look at it's nicely explained. Stages of psychosexual development, but in the oral stage, it is not telling that it is really matter for right, like in here, or it said that it says that oral stage is critical for development of the ego of the person, but oral stage is not the stage which directly affect for a person's ego development, but basically this ego is really um, uh, development is happening at the anal stage. Here, look at this. The anal stage is a crucial stage for the development of the ego. So therefore, you have to tell, you have to disagree with this statement. The development of the ego is starting from, is critical stage is the anal stage, not oral stage. So that is the way you have to justify your answer. Then, there is no difference between repression and projection when considering different defense mechanism. Actually, we have decided with this statement. Why? Because there is a difference between like projection and repression. Okay, so please refer this the given handout. It's nicely explained how the repression is how the repression is like difference in projection. So therefore, answer should be like when you're writing the answer, you have to disagree this statement. You have to tell what is repression, what is projection, and what is the difference between these two in order to earn 3 marks. Describe 3 fundamental characteristics of personality. So basically, describe 3 fundamental characteristics of personality. Basically, when we talk about characteristic of personality in the given handout, it's nicely explained. Like it's consistent. Initially, it was there. Like it is like 3. I have given like 4. Like, I think you can see the document, the personality is consistent. I explain, even though in the revision also I explain, even though in the lesson also I have explained. So basically the psychology, the one characteristic, the other characteristic, it can be psychological and physiological in nature and affect behavior in action and multiple expression. That is the answer for question number 2. Like describe, when we ask describe my dear student, like since 10 marks have been given, initial tell what is personality. Personality is a collection of, it's a product of biology and environment, and it's a combination of persons feeling, thoughts, feeling, behavior, perception, traits, physical appearance, etc. So therefore, this personality can be comprised with, like, you can tell the three characteristic of it, like consistent, it's both physiological and psychological. It affect behavior and action, and it's multiple expression, etc. And just telling, just listing these characteristic will not cause to give marks. Since 10 marks have been provided, my dear student, at least 1 mark will be given for personality explanation, and remaining 3, in order to earn remaining 9 marks, at least you are required to write 3 characteristics. Okay, so if you write 3, you can earn 3 marks, but in order to earn the rest of 6 marks, you can earn if you explain these concepts, these characteristics, these 3 characteristics separately. So you may wonder, even Mrs. didn't tell the number of characteristics, how we can determine how many needed for this question. So therefore, actually that pattern you can identify if you come for the revision, my dear student. Normally, like 1 mark given for explaining the concept given in the question, as well as the remaining marks. Like since 10 marks have been given, 1 mark for explanation of the concept in the question. Then after the remaining marks, like 9 marks have been given. So therefore 3. So therefore you can write 2 and you can explain, but maximum you can earn like 6 marks. But if you write 3 or more and explaining them, you can earn 9 marks. So it's normally it happens like ඉතුරුෙන් ලකුණු ගන්න බෙදලා බලන්න සමානව කීයෙන්ද කියලා. Discuss 5 factors that affect on personal development of a person. I have listed 16 here. Initially, in the very first question, it was nicely told, like the factors which affect on person's personality, like basically education, in family environment, work environment, then after culture. So likewise, you can write down so many like intelligence and nervous system, so school environment, language, social role, interpersonal relationships, psychological factors, sex differences, characteristic of peer groups, childhood memories. So likewise, you can write feelings. But in here, explain with discuss 5 factors mean, like since 12 marks have been given, like at least you have to explain list 5 factors, and at least better to give 2 points, or at least 2. More than 2 is greatly appreciated. More than 2 points for each factor should be explained. If you explain only the factor using 1 sentence, you can gain only 2 marks. One mark for the concept, 1 mark for the explanation. If you want to get, since my policy is 1 mark for 1 point, at least 2 points you have to write down under each concept to earn altogether 3 marks, like 2 marks for the points, 1 mark for the concept. So therefore, when 5 factors are being asked, don't try to list only, since the given action verb is discussed, you have to explain it in a very detailed manner. Explain with examples how a person's interpersonal relations and psychological factors affect personality development. Explain with example how a person's interpersonal relations and psychological factors affect personality development. Actually, since 8 marks have been given, like we know for a personality development, like interpersonal relationships, how the interpersonal relationship is really matter, because it is nicely explained in the given handout, page number is not there, but like in the factors which affect on personality development, interpersonal relationship, 15 point it has been stated, like interpersonal relationships among the members of a community area unit, vital mean that the facilitates the development of bound social temperament characteristic like attraction towards others, the conception of friendly relationship, love, sympathy, hostility, and additionally isolation that could be negative orientation. පුද්ගලයෙක් තවත් පුද්ගලයෙක් සමග තියෙන සමාජයක තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාවය මත ඒ පුද්ගලයා කොතරම් දුරට මිත්‍රශීලී සම්බන්ධතාවයක් තියාගන්නවද, සිම්පති සානුකම්පිත වෙනවද, hostility කියන්නේ සතුරු මානසිකත්වයක් තියෙනවද, additionally isolation තනියම ජීවත් වෙනවද කියන දේවල් වලටත් යන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා interpersonal relationships කොතරම් දුරට අනිත් යාළුවෝ එක්ක, දෙමව්පියෝ එක්ක, සහෝදර සහෝදරියෝ එක්ක එයා මුහු වෙනවද කියන ප්‍රමාණය අනුව එයාගේ ජීවිතයේ අනිත් අය එක්ක තියෙන සමීප මිත්‍රශීලී සම්බන්ධතාවයේ ආදරය, දයාව, කරුණාව, ඒ වගේම තනියෙන් සිටීමට ඇති කැමැත්ත, සතුටු මානසිකත්වය මේ සියල්ලක්ම වර්ධනය වෙන නිසා so all these love, sympathy, hostility, these friendly relationship, isolation are already affected for a person's personality. So basically these friendly relationship, love, sympathy, hostility, isolation, all are determined as a result of interpersonal relationship with the community members, with among the members of the community. So therefore, interpersonal relationship is really matter for personality development. So you have to ensure as parents whether we have very good interpersonal relationship at home with their brothers and sisters, with their parents, in the village with the villagers, in the school with their peers and the teachers, in the tuition class with their peers, with the relatives, etc. It's really matter. Then the other one is psychological factors. So we know when we talk about psychological factors, simply it's a cognitive process of a person, really like motives, unheritable interest, attitudes, as well as intellectual capacities like intelligence, skills like observe, like simply like intellectual capacities like intelligence, that means skills to understand, observe, imagine, suppose, reasons, all are really matter for personality. Again, පුද්ගලයෙකුට අපි කියන පුද්ගලයෙක්ගේ ආකල්ප ඒ පුද්ගලයා කොතරම් දුරට මානසික ශක්තියක් තියෙනවද? ඒ කියන්නේ යාට දෙයක් තේරුම් ගන්න, දෙයක් නිරීක්ෂණය කරන්න, හිතන්න, හේතු දක්වන්න තියෙන හැකියාව පුද්ගලයාගේ පෞරුෂය निर्माण है also because some people are really smart in reasoning, some people are really smart in observing, understanding, imagining. They are very creative, they are innovative, they are highly intelligent persons, their attitude is positive. So all these motives, they have very positive motives. So all these psychological factors are directly affect for a person's personality, their thoughts, emotions, and behavior. So therefore, these psychological factors, cognitive processes such as reasoning, problem solving skills, ability to understand something, ability to observe object or imagination ability, reasoning ability, all are really matter for personality development. So give some example for psychological factors. Give some example for healthy and bad interpersonal relationships, which healthy interpersonal relationships which develop personality, and bad interpersonal relationship which hinder the personality development. So always providing example will provide you a very good opportunity to earn marks. Then differentiate consciousness, pre-conscious and unconscious part of mind with example. So don't forget to differentiate these three with example, because in the given like 10 marks have been given. Like first, initially tell that according to Sigmund Freud, the human mind can be cascaded into three parts. They are conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. It's similar for iceberg. Okay, you can draw the iceberg and show these three areas as well. So when it try to differentiate, tell that pre-conscious is consist of anything that could be brought into the conscious mind. And example, right now you can't remember the home address, but if you recall, you can do it. It's an example for pre-conscious. Then unconscious mind, like it contain all the thoughts, memories, feeling, and wishes we are aware at any given moment. So right now, if you are study about like personality development stages of a person, then since those 5 stages in your mind, it's in your conscious mind. Then we can call the memory, the conscious mind. So similar word for conscious mind is memory. Then unconscious mind is like it's a container of feeling, thoughts, memories outside our conscious awareness, and it contains unacceptable and unpresentable content such as feeling of pain, anxiety, and conflict. So likewise, you can write down the difference between, like basically, let's say if a person has exposed to child abuse during his childhood period, that unpleasant feeling and anxiety will definitely affect for him to behave in front of male people. Okay, like sometime if in childhood, if his parents always discourage or introduce that child as a very shy or a person who cannot do anything, so that unpleasant pain feeling will definitely affect for his outgoing personality. So likewise, you can provide some example for separately provide example for conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious need. Some students, what they do is they show the iceberg and they are telling this is the example. This is not the example. This is the way you can show where unconscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious, pre-conscious, and conscious part in our mind, how it look like, whether it is visible, whether it's partly visible, whether it's invisible. So in order to show that thing, you can use the iceberg. But when I am asking an example, you have to separately, you have to provide an acceptable example for that. Describe how the unconscious mind will affect a person's behavior. Describe how the unconscious mind will affect a person's behavior. Basically, we know that unconscious mind, like it's a container of feeling, thoughts, memories outside our conscious awareness. So, in your handout, it's nicely explained. Since describe is the word, not listing is important. When somebody is asked describing, you have to explain in a very broad manner, my dear student. Since 8 marks have been given, like at least 3 way it affect for a person's behavior should be listed and explained. Like in your handout, like basically I have shown how this unconscious part is affect for a person's life. So look at this, like simply when there is because we know everybody having unconscious mind. So if a person is always possessing negative thoughts, like I have given like example 3, 6, 9, 11 examples are there, but you don't want to write all here, at least three or more than 3 explaining with explanation is needed. Negative thoughts, self-defeating thoughts and behavior, feeling of anger, compulsive behavior, childhood behavioral problem. In childhood behavior problem ගැන පොඩි කාලෙකින් තැනකට හැසිරෙන්න දන්නේ නැහැ, දඟලනවා. අනිත් අයට ගහනවා, දේවල් හොරකම් කරන් එනවා. So difficulties in interpersonal relationship, distressing pattern in romantic relationship, attitude about others, unhealthy habits, distressing dreams, first impression, like these I have explained. Even though in the lesson I have explained, even though in the previous revision also I have explained the composition of all these areas. So in the given question, at least, my dear student, you have to explain at least 3 or more than 3. So in order to earn 6 marks, at least 2 sentences for each behavior, behavior should be explained. How does it differ from ego? Justify with the exam. How does it not it? Id. It should be id. Should be id. ID. So actually you have to differentiate id from ego. And I prefer if you can use a table for this purpose. You can draw a table with 2 columns like id and ego. Okay, then tell what is ego first. Yeah, what is id first? Id is like it is the derived by, like simply it is the selfish part of the personality. Ego is the rational part of the personality. So this is the first difference. Then it is driven by the pleasure principle. Ego is driven by the reality principle. It is greedy for immediate gratification. Then the third difference is ego is not go for immediate gratification. Ego is highly focusing on balance the id and superego's contradictory demands. So likewise, you can show an example to show the difference between these two. Like if you want to get up from the meeting, you get up and go, it's ego. But if you want to get up, but if you want to go to to have your lunch, but bearing that pain and discomfort and stay in the meeting is the ego part, because you know it's not the behavior which is it is not appropriate to get up and go. So likewise, the example wise also you can provide an example. difference, but since 10 marks have been provided, like 5 differences you have to provide in terms of the definition, in terms of the principle, in terms of the mediator satisfaction need, in terms of the example. Like you can tell that id is the selfish part of the personality, then ego is the rational part of the personality. So likewise, draw a table and write down, it is much more appropriate. What will happen if an imbalance occur among the id, ego and superego? Actually, if there's an imbalance, if there's an imbalance in ego and superego, definitely we have to go for defense mechanism. So always this defense mechanism will be followed by ego when there is an imbalance between id and superego. So what personality happens, like basically you can tell that the persons will go for defense mechanism. So tell what is defense mechanism, then after tell few defense mechanism which can be used when there's an imbalance between ego, superego. Since 6 marks have been given, tell that why this imbalance is happening. This imbalance happen because there is a different demands come from ego and superego, and sorry, id and superego, and ego is unable to balance these two different demands. Id කියන පන්තිය කණ්ඩ කියලා superego කියන කණ්ඩම එපා කියලා. Then ego cannot balance these demands, so therefore they go for defense mechanism. So you can give some example in order to earn 6 marks. Differentiate denial mechanism with displacement, regression with sublimation, rationalization with repression. Since 4 marks for each category, like you have to write, so therefore 4 marks for each, at least 2 for denial mechanism, 2 for displacement, 2 point for regression, 2 point for sublimation, 2 point for rationalization, 2 point for repression is highly needed. Okay, so it's appreciated if you can put them into a table, but if not, doesn't matter. Explain it as a paragraph, but at least 4 sentences for each part is necessary. Two points for denial, 2 point for displacement, 2 point for regression, 2 point for sublimation, 2 point for rationalization, 2 point for repression. Okay, so if you write only 1 point for one, that means 1 point for denial, 1 point for displacement to show one difference, then you can get only 2 marks. So likewise, in order to earn 4 marks, at least two differences should be written. Like when you write 2 differences, four marks you can earn, because 1 mark for denial, 1 mark for displacement, 1 mark for again denial, one mark for displacement. So I won't give one difference 1 mark, because since there are denial and displacement, denial displacement column දෙකක් දාලා ලියනකොට දෙකට ලකුණු දෙකක් දෙනවා. එක ඩිෆරන්ස් එකක් ලියුවකල එක ලකුණක් දෙකටම දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා denial එකේ වෙනස්කම් දෙකකුයි displacement එකේ වෙනස්කම් දෙකකුයි පදනම ගන්නකොට එකම පදනම ගන්න. definition එක නම් ගන්න definition wise වෙනස පෙන්නන්න. ingredients නම් ඇතුලේ අන්තර්ගතේ නම් ඇතුලේ අන්තර්ගතයෙන් වෙනස දක්වන්න. එහෙම ලකුණු ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. So what personality happens if the conflict are not resolved in the oral stage? So actually when we talk about oral stage, like it's nicely explained in your handout, like what personality happens if the conflicts are unresolved in the anal stage. බලමු මේ දෙකටම උත්තරේ. oral stage එකේදී අපිට අපේ අවශ්‍යතා හට තෘප්තිමත් උනේ නැත්තම් කියනවා what will happen if the conflicts are not resolved at this stage. According to Sigmund Freud, the consequences of unresolved conflicts at this stage relate to the mouth. Smoking, overreacting, excessive drinking, nail biting, excessive sarcasm, like too much criticism can be example. ඒ වගේම අධික තරබාරුකමත් it's an example when there is a conflict are not resolved at this stage, like smoking, excessive drinking, nail biting, like අපි කියන obsession කියන්නේ අධික තරබාරුව කියන දේ. මොකද අධික තරබාරුව වෙන්නේ ඒ කාලේ හරියට තොල් වලින් හටු උරාගෙන දීපු නැති නිසා ලොකු වෙනකොට පෙරේතකම හිතිලා කෑම කාලා මහත් වෙනවා. කටින් තෘප්තිය ගන්න ලොකු නම උත්සාහ කරනවා කාලා. එතකොට ඒකයි. එතකොට අධික තරබාරු අයට මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ මේ මුඛාවදියේදී හරියට තෘප්තිමත් වෙලා නැහැ. ඒකයි ඒගොල්ලෝ මහත් වෙන්නේ ගොඩාරියක්. කෑම වලට ගිජු. නියපොතු කන සික දුම් පානය කරන මද්ද්‍රව්‍යයට ඇබ්බැහි වෙන පුද්ගලයෙක් බවට පත් වෙනවා මුඛාවදියේදී හරියට දේවල් උඳන්. So you have to show the consequences of when there is the conflict are not resolved in the oral stage, like smoking, like drugs, addicting for drugs, then obsession, adhikatara baruwa, nail biting. So try to explain these things. And what percent happens if the conflict unresolved in the anal stage? Anal stage එකේදී හරට උනේ නැත්තම් මේ දේවල් what will happen? A person will not learn about potty training. The person will not learn about cleanliness. The person will not learn about generosity. නොමසුරුකම, පිරිසිදුකම සහ වැසිකිලි පුහුණුව කියන දේවල් දන්නේ නැතුව ගිහිල්ලා ඒ පුද්ගලයා what will happen eventually? This person will become like very messy people කෙනෙක්. ඒ කියන්නේ හරිම අපිරිසිදු, අපිලි වලට වැඩ කරන, හැමතැනම චූදාන, හැම ඒ කියන්නේ තැන් කක්කි දාන, හැමතැනම කක්කි දාන චූදාන හරි පෙරේත මිනිස්සෙක් වෙනවා. මොකද අර ඒ කාලෙදි මං කියන්නේ ඉල්ලන එක නොදෙන එක තමයි ගතිකුනේ. ඒ කාලෙදි දෙමව්පියෝ වැඩිහිටියෝ අපිව අධික ලෙස වේදනපත් කරලා තිබ්බොත් දෙන්න කියලා ඔය පුබ් දාන්න පිස් දාන්න කියලා. එතකොට ඒ දේවල් තද කර ගැනීම තුනේ පුද්ගලයා වැඩිහිටි වුණාමත් මසුරුකම කියන දේවල් එනවා. ඒතර මසුරුකමට ඇබ්බැහි වෙනවා. අපිරිසුදුකමට ඇබ්බැහි වෙනවා. টয়ලට් පුහුණුව නැති වෙනවා කියන කාරණා you have to write down. Last three question. What happens to a person's personality if the conflicts are not resolved in the phallic stage? Let's say in the phallic stage, a conflict එක හට phallic stage එකේදී ඇති වුණේ නැත්නම් what will happen? Girls are not love their moms. If boys are not love their fathers. Okay? ඒතකොට ගෑනු දරුවෝ තමාගේ අම්මට ආදරය කරන්නේ නැති වෙන්නේ, පිරිමි දරුවෝ තමාගේ තාත්තට ආදරය කරන්නේ නැති වෙන්නේ. අර ඒ කාලේදී අම්මයි තාත්තයි දරුවෝ ඉස්සරහ අපිට ආදර්ශමත් විදියට ආදරයෙන් කරුණාවෙන් හිටියේ නැති නිසා. මොකද ගෑනු දරුවෝ ආදරේ තාත්තටනේ. එතකොට තාත්තට ආදරය වුණාම තාත්තා අම්මට ආදරය කරද්දී ගෑනු දරුවෝ අම්මා වගේ වෙන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා. ඒතර අම්මගේ ගතිගුණ අර පිරිමැස්ම පිරිසිදුකම ඉගෙන ගන්න ඒ හරහා. ඒතර පිරිමි දරුවෙක් ආදරේ අම්මටනේ. තාත්තා අම්මට ආදරය කරේ නැත්තම් පිරිමි දරුවෙක් තාත්තා වගේ වෙන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒතර පිරිමි ගතිගුණ එයාගේ නැති වෙනවා. ගෙදරින් දකින්නේ නැහැ. So therefore so that is a negative impact. ඒතර ගෑනු දරුවෝ අම්මගෙන් ඈත් වෙනවා. පිරිමි දරුවෝ තාත්තගෙන් ඈත් වෙලා ගෑනු දරුවෝ අපි කියන්නේ අනේ ඒ අම්මට උයන්න පුළුවන් වුණාට පිරිසිදුකම දන්නවට දුව දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒකට හේතුව තමයි මේ අම්මයි තාත්තයි හොඳ රැපෝ එකක් ඒ දරුවෝ අතර පෙන්නලා නැහැ. ඒ නිසා ඒ දුව අම්මව ඉමිටේට් කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා අනුකරණය කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා නැහැ. තාත්තා අම්මා ඉස්සරහා අපිට ආදරණීය ලෙස හැසිරෙන්නේ නැතුව ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා පුතා තාත්තව ඉමිටේට් කරන්න යන්නේ නැති නිසා තාත්තා දන්න දේවල් තාත්තා දන්නවා යන තාත්තා හැමදේම ගෙදර දේවල් දන්නවා. ස්විච් එකක් හයි කර ගන්න දන්නවා. වතුර බටයක් කඩනම හදන්න දන්නවා. නමුත් පුතා ඒ දේවල් දන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද පුතා තාත්තව අනුගමනය කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. So therefore in order to train your good qualities to children, so better to be a very exemplary as husband and wife or mother and father in front of children. What happens to a person's personality if the conflicts are not resolved in the phallic stage? I discussed. What happened to a person's personality if the conflicts are not resolved in latency period? හරිද? and genital stage එකෙත් බලමු. මේ stages පහේදී කතා කරන්නේ. So in the genital stage, like latency stage, like basically since the next question is latency stage. latency stage එකේදී අපි හරියට දරුවන්ව හරියට අවුරුදු 6 සිට වැඩිහිටි වෙන දක්වා හොඳට පුරුදු කරේ නැත්නම් අපි ඒ දරුවෝ අධ්‍යාපනයට actually that person will not go for education. There is no කියන්නේ අධ්‍යාපන උනන්දුවක් පෙන්වන්නේ නැහැ. extra curricular activities වලට උනන්දුවක් පෙන්වන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම ටයිම් ටේබල් එකකට වැඩ කරන්න පුරුදු වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. ඒ වගේම ඒගොල්ලෝ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ගොඩාක් දේවල් එකපාර ඇබ්සෝබ් කරගන්න පුළුවන් වයසක් නේ. අපි කියන්නේ භාෂා ගණනාවක් වුණත් ඇබ්සෝබ් කරගන්න පුළුවන් වයසක් කියලා. ඒතර දෙයක් එකපාර মালටි ටාස්කින් වෙන්න දන්නේ නැහැ. අධ්‍යාපන උනන්දුවක් නැති වෙනවා, মালටි ටාස්කින් වෙන්න දන්නේ නැති වෙනවා, ටයිම් ටේබල් එකට වැඩ කරන්න දන්නේ නැති වෙනවා. එතකොට එක්ස්ට්‍රා කරිකුලර් ඇක්ටිවිටීස් වලට ආස නැහැ. ඒ වගේ ළමයි කැමති පැත්තකටලා ඉන්න. So therefore that is the dangerous side if the conflicts are not resolved in this fourth stage. Last question, what happened to a person's personality if the conflicts are not resolved in genital stage? Genital mean after after puberty. So ඒ කාලේදී there is high tendency for heterosexual. වෙනස් අයට always prefer for sexual pleasure. So if during that time if ඒ වගේ හැඟීම් ඇති වෙන එක මේ අපේ hormone වලින් සාමාන්‍ය දෙයක්. So as a parent we have to have a very good relationship with the children during this time. ඒතර මේ කාලේදී තමයි පුතේ අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දරුවන්ට කියන්න ඕනේ ලිංගික අධ්‍යාපනය මීට කලින් වැඩිහිටි වෙන්න කලින් ලිංගික අධ්‍යාපනය දීලා තියෙනවා. තමන්ගේ ශරීර කොටස් අනිත්යට අල්ලන්න දෙන්න බෑ. ලිංගික සම්බන්ධතා පවත්වන්නට බෑ. So that means sexual education can be provided at least in this stage, but before if you can give it perfectly okay, like in the previous stage, like latency stage, since they don't like for ඒ කාලෙ දිස්සේ පිරිමි ළමයි ගෑනු ළමයි පිරිමයිට ගෑනු ළමයි කැමති නැති නිසා ඉතින් ඒකත් අහන්නේ හරි ලැජ්ජාවෙන්. නමුත් මේ ජෙන්ටල් ස්ටේජ් එකේදී ඔකට හරි උනන්දුයි, like sexual education වලට. ඒතර මේක දීලා අපි ළමයින්ව පරිස්සම් කරන, you should be aware about this romantic relationship. Sometimes boys may invite you to have relationship with them. Girls, it happens in both, from both sides. So therefore, don't try to form romantic relationship. This is not the time for you to start this kind of relationship. But we have to be focused on studies. We have to be focused on studies. Like we have පිරිමයි එක්ක ගෑනු ළමයි හරිම මිත්‍රශීලීව ඉන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි අනවශ්‍ය සම්බන්ධතා, ශාරීරික සම්බන්ධතා සහ ප්‍රේම සම්බන්ධතා කියන දේවල් අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒව දරුවන්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනයට, because this is not the era where you can make decision about love relationships. So therefore you have to focus on education. මේ වගේ conflict resolve වෙච්ච නැති අයගේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට they start unnecessary romantic relationship, and finally it will open a door for ruin their education life. අධ්‍යාපන ජීවිතේ ruin වෙන්න ඒක හේතු වෙනවා. එහෙනම් කෙනෙක්ගේ personality එකට මේ කාලේදී conflict හරියට resolve නැත්නම් ඒගොල්ලෝ එවනගේ අධ්‍යාපනයත් බාධා කරගෙන අනවශ්‍ය සම්බන්ධ ඇති කරගෙන අර විවාහයට කලින් ඇතුළත් වෙලා ගොඩාක් දේවල් ජීවිතේ නැති කර ගන්නවා. So that is the negative side of not resolving conflict during that genital stage. So therefore, as parents, in this genital stage, we have to provide the education, like simply the sexual education we have to provide. We have to stay with them always, and we have to tell that romantic relationship is, even though you have that feeling, this is not the age for you to start that kind of relationship. So likewise, you have to nicely explain the negative side of the romantic relationship, which greatly affect for ruin your education life and other activities. So those are so in order to earn 6 marks, you have to explain. But if you feel that the given handout is not sufficient, try to find out basically oral stage and anal stage can be defined successfully. A phallic and latent stage, genital stage, if you want to know what happened if a person's personality, if the conflicts are not resolved in these different stages, like especially for 3rd, 4th, and 5th stages, better to focus on that. Okay. So I'll be stopping from this point, discussing exam focus question part 1. And we'll be discuss with you the second part of personality, as I done earlier, like I'll be explaining the second part of the personality in a very nutshell. Then after I'll explaining, I'll be discussing the exam focus question on personality part 2. So thank you so much for being with me during this period. So let's meet from personality part 2. Let's have a recap on that section. Then later on, we'll discuss the exam focus question part 2, personality part 2. So have a nice day and God bless you, my dear students.